There's been a cloud hanging over our travels almost from the first day we set foot on this 10-year epic adventure for Sarah and I. And I want to unpack that in this video, and at the end I've got 3 massive tips that may well just short-circuit some of these issues for you. I'm in a wonderful marina, still here in the UK, and if you saw last week's video, you'll know that I like to spend some time alone every now and again. I suggested there should be 8 days in a week, so I can spend 7 of them with Sarah and 1 on my own just contemplating things. So it's still early in the morning here. I've left Sarah in bed and I've headed out to make this video. Sarah doesn't need to be in this because basically the problems I'm talking about, she's not suffered with. So this is my story. And the title and thumbnail are not clickbait. Yes, something has to change or this will be all over for us. So a really important thing I'd really appreciate for this video is I don't need any comments that say, told you so. I knew that long-term travel wasn't going to be for you. I could see it right across your faces that it wasn't working. Don't need it, because to say that would be similar to saying to a toddler or a baby that's trying to walk for the first time and it's stumbling and falling over, and you say to it, that was rubbish. You might as well just give up. If you're a baby, you can't give up. You got to keep going because you've got this desire, this dream of walking. For us, we've got a dream of travel, and I feel that dream 10 times more today than I ever did before we started. There's nothing here that you can tell me so. I've been working this through for myself for some time. So let's grab a seat and let me take you through this. I'm not going to draw this out. I've got a lot to say. I'm going to do it quick because I know last week's video was a bit long, wasn't it? Just taking that baby analogy on a little bit, remember your first job? You might have suffered a bit of imposter syndrome. You're sitting there on day 1, everyone around you knows what they're doing, you haven't got a clue. For me, that imposter syndrome lasted for years, in fact almost to the end of my career. So for me to say at that point, well obviously working's not for me, wouldn't have been the right thing. And it's the same for this travel. What we're doing is we got to flex to make the travel work for us, not to say, is travel working for us? Because one way or the other, it is. And this is my story. This isn't anybody else's story. This is a unique issue that I'm suffering with, but there are elements of it that you may well relate to if you're traveling now or if you plan to long-term travel in the future. In fact, we've got really good friends who do exactly the same as we do, and they're kind of role models for us because all the issues that we have, they seem to overcome really well for themselves. And I thought long and hard about making this video. In fact, there's been a working title for it of something, well, what was it? Why long-term world travel is maybe the worst decision I ever made. Now, I've got friends that will say to me, even Sarah said to me, I thought you'd made that because I've been talking about making this video for so long. And the reason for that is because I'm nervous about laying this on the line. But why am I doing it? I'm doing it because I think there's stuff in here for you. There's stuff here that you can unpack for yourself and think about. And if you haven't already thought about these things and you're not yet traveling, it's now time to think about it. So what is this cloud? Well, let me tell you a bit about me, and that is I've never been a health freak. You would never ever find me in a gym. I'm not that kind of guy. And when it comes to eating food, I've always eaten quite well. In fact, in our old traditional life, I was the chef of the household, and I cook everything from scratch, and we'd eat quite well. And when I say quite well is we'd eat out, we'd have takeaways, we do all that kind of stuff, but on the whole, we ate well. When it comes to my fitness, I didn't go to the gym, but we'd go hiking, and the holidays that we enjoyed would be going to the Peak District in the UK or the Lake District, doing long hikes. We used to absolutely love that. So to be clear, I was always reasonably healthy and I always ate reasonably well. I was what you would call average. So coming on to travel, my dream of travel was we'd get to a location, we'd go to the local market, we'd carefully select some produce, go home and cook it. And my dream was that we'd be out hiking every day, getting that clean air in our lungs, and without having to go to work, we could do more and more of it and get fitter and fitter. And my dream was we'd be living in quirky and cool Airbnb accommodations, and that would just enrich our whole travel lifestyle. And the reality of travel's been almost without exception, Airbnbs have been challenging, and obviously hotels worse because you can't cook anything in most hotels. They'd be poorly equipped, not have anything for me to really get in and make a fantastic meal. So the excitement of going to get produce kind of waned when I knew that when we got back to our accommodation I'd have to have the skills of a survivalist to get this knife that hasn't been sharpened since the Boer War to cut through this carrot. It just wasn't as exciting as I thought it would be. And then every once in a while, we'd stay in an Airbnb that was fantastic, fully equipped, like someone's home. But by then, I was kind of over it. You get there and you see all this stuff, but I was so out of practice with cooking, I just thought, let's just go out and get something to eat. Then there's the hiking. Now, I've got to say, there have been some locations we've been in where the hiking has been fabulous. If you've been with us any amount of time, you would see that we spent a long time in Athens in Greece. We absolutely loved it. It was in winter, and this may surprise you, but we love walking to the extent that if we saw there was something we wanted to go and visit, we'd look on a map, and if we saw it was 5 miles away, we go, brilliant, because we can walk there and we can walk back. We get 10 miles of walking in. We had no interest in taking any public transport or getting an Uber to do anything like that because the temperature was perfect to get out there and really see the city by foot. But then conversely, we've been in Mexico, which is hot. We've been in Southeast Asia, which is hot and humid, and the excitement kind of wanes a little bit when the moment you step outside, you're dripping wet before you even start walking. And I know in Kuala Lumpur, we spent a lot of time walking at night just because that was when it was a bit cooler. But there's only so much you can achieve by walking at night. You can't see a lot of the city when a lot of the city is in darkness. And then there are these funky, cool accommodations. If you've seen our videos recently, you'll see we've had a few challenges, but we've had some amazing, truly amazing accommodations. And for any of those Airbnb hosts that are watching, thank you so much. You really have put us up like we were kings and queens in some places. But let me just share with you a funny story. There was one place we stayed in. I'm not going to name it, not going to name the location because it doesn't add anything to the story. But we got there, checked into our apartment, and it seemed fine. It wasn't amazing, I've got to admit, but it was absolutely fine. So we thought we'd pop out, get a bite to eat, and then come back and relax. We came back, we sat on the sofa, and sitting on the sofa was like sitting on this hard bench. There was nothing under it. So I spoke to the host, and she said, okay, I'll send out my maintenance guy, and he'll check it out for you. He came out. This is what happened. It was hilarious. And actually, one of the joys of travel is I'm a lot more relaxed in life now than I ever have been. And maybe in the past, I would have taken issue with what this guy was saying. But I was working, I was at my laptop. So when he arrived, Sarah let him in and he looked at the sofa and basically it was broken. Now, I've taken a couple of photos. I've inserted them here. These I didn't think would ever make it into a YouTube video, so they're really, really poor. But what you can see is that basically there are no springs and there's pieces of wood that are snapped in half, hence the problem. He said, you know what the problem is? We get a lot of Westerners staying here. We're Westerners. And Westerners are fat. These sofas aren't made for fat Westerners, so they sit on it and it snaps. If there was an Asian person sat on it, it wouldn't be an issue. But what he then said he'd do is he measured up so he could get a new bit of wood. And we were going to be sitting on a plank on this sofa. And this isn't an isolated incident. I'll tell you now, if you're going to stay in an Airbnb anywhere in the world, you've got to expect that you're going to be staying in an apartment with the worst bed available from the local shop and the worst, most uncomfortable sofa. Or it will be something that's end of life and the Airbnb host has been sitting on it for 20 years themselves and think, I'm not sitting on that again. I'll just stick that in my Airbnb and let some other mug sit on it. Yeah, I'll just put on screen up here that is a generalisation. There are some wonderful ones out there, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. So I've explained a bit. The question though, that you're probably sat there with is so what? Well, I've been more sick in the last 3 years of travel than probably my entire adult life put together. It's actually come to a point, and this isn't a joke, where if I have a full month without being sick, Sarah and I actually celebrate it. And I've had physical issue after physical issue. Now you could say, well, you're getting older, so you're going to get these, but this is far and above anything you would expect from aging. For example, I put my back out for 2 months, and putting your back out when you're traveling full time is a hazard, because how are you going to get from point A to B if you can't even lift a bag? I actually did it by carrying a bag up 3 flights of stairs and put my back out totally. But if I was as healthy as I always had been, I would have been hiking more and my core strength would be better, which would lead to a situation where I would be unlikely to put my back out in the way that I had done. So this has always felt for me like a death by 1,000 cuts. Then lastly, because I'm not cooking the way that I always had done, we're both putting on a few pounds. Gotta say, I'm putting on more pounds than Sarah is. And something that I'd said to a friend recently was, I expected that to travel for 10 years would be the most exciting 10 years of my life. I didn't expect the 10 years to actually cut my life expectancy. That's the challenge that I seem to be struggling with at the moment. So why am I telling you all this? Why am I getting all this off my chest? Well, there's something in this for you. 3 things. And the first thing is, if you're planning to travel long term, focus on it before you get there. I want you to get into routines, and these routines have got to be simple, have got to be repeatable, and most importantly, portable. So for example, if you're a real gym buddy at the moment, what are they called? Gym bunny. If you're a gym bunny at the moment, you may start traveling and find you're in a location where you can't get to a gym. What's plan B? The next one, I think, is probably the most important. I should have put it last, but I'm putting it in now. The next one is, don't put off travel until later, because every day you're getting older and you're getting less nimble. If you have plans to travel, there is no perfect time. Prioritize it and do it as soon as it is practical for you to do so. Last one is go. Just go and do it. Live your dream, live this life. Don't be put off by anything I'm saying today. Sarah and I are traveling for 10 years minimum. We've already said, I think we said in the last video, we're going to be traveling for life. So you've got our blessing. If this is the dream life for you, go off, go do it. It's absolutely fantastic. Caveat is, think about the things that can go wrong and put things in place before doing that. Remember, the strapline to our channel is living an intentional life. Put those intentional plans in place. When things aren't going according to plan, like for me, change up. That's what I'm coming on to next. And that is that I think we found our solution. And I'm going to share that in the next video, because I've got a lot to unpack with that, and actually talking to other people that are thinking about doing exactly the same thing. So this has been a particularly personal video for me to share. Love to get your insights and views on this. I don't want anything telling me you're doing something wrong, because we're not. But your insights will be absolutely fantastic. You've been watching To Go Roam, and you'll see both of us in the next one. Bye for now.